Hello everyone, welcome to the Northland Artist Conversation. My name is Mark Kelly, I am your host, your guide, and I'm still not entirely too sure how I came up with this one, your Sherpa. As we take this intrepid journey through some of the amazing creative people that are in Northland, New Zealand, Southern Hemisphere, world, third rock from the sun. I'm going to flick to my camera. Tonight's guest is Paul Dyer. Now, I've known Paul for quite a few years. We sort of talk about it a little bit. 16, 17 years. It's been a while. And Paul is also a podcaster as well. So it was actually quite cool to have, like another guy that sits and does similar stuff to what we do, which is cool. And he's also I can say this, and it will be a gross understatement, but Paul is a bit of a Cliff Richard fan as well. Just a tad. And we had, I think, probably one of the most chaotic podcasts that we've ever had. The last third, it goes off the rails. Now, I also say this as well. If you only listen to the podcasts through either Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube Podcasts, I would highly recommend, and I cannot stress this enough, highly recommend going and checking out the rapid fire on either Facebook or Instagram. So, if you were going to do things in order, you would probably watch or listen to the podcast first, and then check out the rapid fire. Some people will do that, some people won't. Some people will just consume the content as it comes out, so they'll watch the rapid fire first. There's some jokes in the rapid fire that are referenced in the podcast. That makes sense. So, yeah, this is the part. This is the part where I shut up and try not to start laughing my ass off again. But let's sit down and have a conversation with Paul Dyer. Let's get the formalities out of the way. Paul Dyer, welcome to the Northland Artist Conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And this is obviously the second time we've started this due to a technical issue. We'll address the elephant in the room because it's fine. Shit doesn't always go the way you want it to, and I think we're both okay with that.
Absolutely.
Now, you also podcast as well, right?
I do.
Now, have you ever had any technical issues?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, good.
I think one of my worst times was when I interviewed Marty Wilde.
Yes.
And he started the interview in his car. I rang him on his cell phone. He started it in his car because he was running late.
Yeah.
Good old English traffic.
Yeah.
And at the end of it all, I just freaked out because I was like, I can't find the audio. And I have, at the same time, I record from like the Zoom H6.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. Do you
pass
audio through that?
Pass audio through that.
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
And then also as a backup have, I think, Zoom recording.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, and there was just no audio anywhere. And then I found audio, and then it was just me. I was like, oh, great.
What a one-sided conversation.
A one-sided conversation.
Oh, wow.
And then I discovered some more folders, and then it ended up going to some weird directory, but...
Okay. And you were able to get it out in the end?
Yeah. I had to send it to a friend in Canada to put them all together because it's beyond me.
Okay.
And she was, she did it really well.
Technology!
Yeah.
Hooray! God.
So while I can run a radio station,
yeah.
some things are still beyond me.
Oh, shit. Okay, cool. All right. So from one podcaster to another, we understand that sometimes technical shit just goes sideways.
Yep.
Oh, bless. Producer Andrew, I love you, mate. Yeah, that's it. Fight the power. Now, I'd been trying to get you on here for about a year, and that's kind of when you were working at one of your previous jobs, and I remember sort of saying, hey, and you saying you do a podcast, and I was like, yeah, I'd love to have you on, man. And then it didn't happen because jobs change, people get busy, life gets in the way. So for me, it is really, really cool that you're able to come in and sit down and do this. Now, you and I have known each other for over 16 or 17 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's
a long time.
It's a long time. And we've never, like, it's not like we've gone, yeah, we're best mates, hang out, get on the terps and go drinking.
Yeah.
We met at JB Hi-Fi in Lynn
Yes.
And that's where, we just kind of, you were a good salesperson. I wasn't too much of a dick. And that is true, by the way, for any people that are from JB Hi-Fi days know that. A dick, but not a total one. And it's quite cool because, like, we've sort of kept in touch kind of in and out over the years. Oh, so producer Andrew will take photos. You don't have to smile. Oh, yeah. Just, as I said, ignore you. Hang on. 1, 2, 3.
Smile.
Just ignore him. I often do. Don't worry about it. But in this podcast, we sort of like to get to know our guests, learn a bit about their background, where they kind of came from, what got them into being a creative in general. Because, we've had some people that have, started their journey and they've gone, well, I picked up a pencil when I was 5 and I'm now in my 40s and I still hold a pencil. So they've done the same thing the whole way through. Or you get people that go, I was creative and then I went to school and became a lawyer, and then I was a lawyer for 30 years, and then I hated it and then became an artist again. So everyone's journey is very, very different. What was it like for you growing up in your household?
Good. I think for me, it all started when I was 2.
We can go back that far?
We can go back that far.
Wow. Okay.
My memory will still go back that far.
That's crazy, man. Mine won't. Mine's shot. Anyway, different reasons. Carry on.
I was a toddler. I was 2.
Yeah.
And I'd cry a lot.
Okay.
So nothing's changed. No.
So you go. I'm going to end up in tears.
I was 2. And I'd cry a lot, and Mum would play, the usual programs at the time. I think it was Sesame Street, Play School, that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah. You're just like plonked in front of the TV.
Plonked in front of a TV, while she would do her housework.
Yeah.
Because she had night shift. And, no, still wouldn't settle.
Really?
Then one day she put on a video that she recorded, I think, a couple of nights before, of Cliff Richard in the Shadows, 1984. Oh, so this was 86.
So this was off TV, right?
This was off TV, yeah.
Okay.
She recorded it off TV, and it was called Cliff and the Shadows Together, and it was their 25th anniversary.
Yeah.
And she put that on. I sat there. Cliff came on stage, and his black pants, his pink socks, and his pink jacket.
Yeah.
And mesmerised.
Really?
Soon as that...
Wait, hang on. From 2?
From 2, yep. And as soon as that concert finished, start up again.
I
would start crying. Rewind, play again. And then I just got in the habit of just stopping and rewinding it myself, and that concert, yep.
That is...
Yep.
Wow.
And then it wasn't long before I was mimicking Cliff and trying to be Cliff, singing along, and...
That is...
Yep.
I mean, as someone who's always loved music growing up, I think one of the earliest bands I got into was Aha. That Hunting High and Low album was amazing. But Cliff at 2, that's... I mean, there's an appreciation and dedication to music and finding a favourite artist, and then there's 2. Wow. Okay. I'm going to have a lot of questions.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Despite Cliff being a very early presence in your life, what was it like for you at school and growing up and stuff like that? Yeah.
Well, I think I remember at primary school having friends, but, not always around them. I was the one... It's funny you should say this because I look back on old report cards not so long ago, and the teacher's like... he has friends, but at lunchtime he's off in the corner of the field pretending he's Cliff Richard.
Hang on, that's in an actual report card.
That is in an actual report card.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
singing to
crazy.
myself, and I remember it.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was the dentist in the field, and then I was pretending there was a stage.
Yeah.
And I was pretending that I was Cliff in 1989 at the event when he took over Wembley Football Stadium for 2 nights.
Wow.
Yeah. And yeah,
Okay.
that was me.
All right. Now, as someone who got picked on a lot for doing drama, what was high school like for you?
Well,
So we'll get brutally honest.
Yeah.
Here. Producer Andrew used to get picked on, and he went to Whangarei Boys, right?
Yeah.
I went to Gisborne Boys High School, which was known for rugby and cricket.
yeah.
And thuggery. And I like to go on stage and do Shakespeare. And play badminton. So I certainly danced to the beat of my own fucking drum.
Yeah. Me too. Yep.
And it wasn't until I got to, I'm going to show my age by saying this because I don't know how it works out nowadays, fifth form, which is year 11, thank you, that I really discovered drama and love of movies and all that sort of stuff. It doesn't mean I still wasn't picked on mercilessly. So what was it like for you being, because what school did you go to?
Rutherford College.
Okay.
It was high school. And
Yeah.
then I think it changed while I was there or before I got there.
Right.
And I think the first few years was hard, and I was sick a lot.
Really?
Yeah, but not sick as in sick, but sick as in, school.
You bunked a lot.
Bunked a lot.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Last night's guest also talked about bunking a lot too. So, yeah.
And then I think when I got to fifth form, I think I really found myself. And from then on, I was just at school every day.
Yeah.
And I got so much to my last year, seventh form, my dean was telling me, you're not good at maths and that. He's like,
Yeah.
you've got a good record, so if you miss a period, it's okay,
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because you've got.
It's okay for you to bunk.
Yeah, it's okay for you to bunk. But that stays in these four walls, this office.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's like, and he taught me, if you stay in school, but you just don't turn up for that lesson,
Right,
just carry around a clipboard.
Yeah.
To make it look like you're doing something.
Okay.
But I think, I got the bullying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Primary school, who was a friend who learnt master of judo.
Right, and decided that you were a practice.
Yeah, decided I was a practice, and I
Right.
think one day I had enough and right in the nuts.
Yes.
And that was the end of
Nut
that.
shots
Yeah.
were common in
Yeah.
that era, yes.
Yeah, and then and then of course it was all Paul's fault,
Yes.
as it always
Yeah,
is.
yeah. Paul hit me.
Yeah.
Motherfucker was asking for
Yeah.
it.
And
I've been hip tossed all week.
Yeah, and then I think in intermediate, I again was just pretty much by myself, and then getting friends in high school and that, and there was like the occasional bullying, but then
Okay.
I think it kind of stopped around.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you sort of had it more younger, and then as you got older, it kind of petered off.
Petered off, yeah.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
crazy, man, because for me it was the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
I was were you academic?
Yes and no. Certain subjects, yeah. English, yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Maths, no. No.
Yeah. I see. For me, I was really academic in primary school and intermediate, and then I got to fourth form and discovered bunking.
Mm-hmm.
I was quite late to the bunking, party.
Yep.
But then once I discovered it, I became like a bunkaholic.
Yeah.
And then I had to learn how to intercept the mail from the school to say that Master Mark Kelly had not been attending school much this term. Please explain why. But what I did get was very, very good at forging notes with Mum's signature. So, Mum, I love you, but that's how I got good at it. If I'm perfectly honest, I'd take her library card out of her purse and I'd practice the signature until it looked close enough. And I got caught out a couple of times because, when I was legitimately sick, Mum and Dad would give you a note and stuff like that, and you kind of fold it up and put it in your pocket, right? I would write a bunking note at school on a piece of refill, and then I just hand over the piece of refill. There's no folds in it. It's did Mum come to school and write this for you just before? Of course Mum didn't. So I'd get caught out, and that's okay.
No.
So okay, that's interesting. And why do you think it kind of just lessened over time? Was it you just stopped giving flying, or people just were like,
people probably like that's Paul.
Yeah. Okay. So
maybe I guess I'm guessing that's what it felt like sometimes, and then it's not till you get older you go through phases and that, and then the bullying starts when you get older again. And you're like, well, why am I falling for this all over again?
Oh, so it came back.
Yeah, much later and much more recent. Yeah.
Oh yes. We can talk about that. We don't have to. That's fine.
No, but I think for me, at the end of the day, it was. The thing that was always there, aside from Cliff, was music.
Yeah, okay. So music in general.
Yeah, music in general. You know, I have a family that absolutely love music. And when I was young, of course it was Cliff, but, I'd get out the mum and dad's records and...
Yeah. What was in the collection?
Elvis.
Yes, classics.
Neil Diamond.
Oh.
Neil Sedaka.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that name in years.
I know. Yeah.
Okay.
And, jeez, there was some in there. And then the rock and roll, those collections.
Solid Gold Hits Volume 21. Yeah. Oh, man, I remember those. Yeah, Rick Springfield.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's
classics.
Obscure ones in there, like, I don't know if they, Ahab, the Arab, and The Streak.
Okay.
Your Ray Stevens.
Yes. Yeah.
And of course, when I was a little, listening to like kid stories like Flick the Fire Engine.
Oh yeah.
Sparky's Piano and Train and all that. And I really think from the record collection and that's when I started to think, I've got my own radio station. Started pretending I had my own radio station. I think that carried on.
Yeah.
Until high school. When I started
an actual
high school radio station.
Wow.
Yeah, for Rutherford.
Yeah.
And then so we'd produce shows at lunchtime and live at lunchtime. And then left high school, went to retail. And then, you do your music and all that, still your big thing, but I think it was like in the 2000s when radio stations stopped playing Cliff.
Okay, right.
Because it's not cool anymore in their eyes. And it was around 1999 because Millennium Prayer for the new millennium.
Oh yes.
Yeah. The Lord's Prayer to Old Lang Syne. Yeah. And they refused. Yeah. So that became a number one.
Yeah.
And that was number one, and then the radio stations had to play it.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of forced into that, really.
And because it was for charity at the time as well.
Yeah.
And then, I thought, it would be good to have like a Cliff radio station, but
Well, how do you do
logistically,
that? How does someone in their 20s?
20s, yeah.
Start up a radio station from home, because normally you have to buy frequencies. And
absolutely.
Sort of stuff.
So it was always there, but in the back burner. And then I think he was touring here in 2010.
Yeah.
I think it was like the third or fourth time I'd seen him live in concert. And I said to one of the ladies from the Australian fan club in 2010, I want to start a Cliff radio station.
Okay.
And she said, okay, go for it. And so I started planning in 2010, and it took 3 years, a good solid 3 years.
Yeah.
2013, I think towards mid-2013, I'd had it nailed.
Yeah.
But waited until his birthday on October the 14th to launch it.
So, yeah. Actually, you launch it on a milestone, right?
Yeah, launch it on a milestone.
Yeah.
And so while I've been going since 2013, since the 14th, we don't share the birthday. We put it off until October the 17th because we have... And it's always been, I think, since like the 60s for Cliff, have like International Cliff Week.
Oh, right.
Where fans would get together, not get together, and the fan club would write to their local radio stations.
And
Cliff Week,
request,
please.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was one way to end the International Cliff Week, was to celebrate.
Yeah.
Cliff
That's
Richard
very
Radio's
cool.
anniversary with, parties and that.
Yeah. Now, you've spoken about some other artists. Music's kind of been the constant in your life, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
How? So you're as we were discussing earlier, 80s Cliff that's the period I know.
Yeah.
And that's also probably the period that a lot of other people will know as well,
Yeah.
because that's when that was peak Cliff.
That was
right?
peak Cliff, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, he was a machine. He
Yeah.
was just unstoppable
Absolutely.
at that point.
Yeah.
You know, it was like number one after number one. He just had the hits coming.
Yeah.
Thinking back to when you were doing the radio show in high school, how did you balance that? Because I don't imagine, 15, 16, 17-year-old boys or girls necessarily going, give me an hour of Cliff, man.
No, yes, it wasn't. It was, maybe I played one song in the entire time.
Wow.
Of Cliff's.
Yeah.
I think everything else was just the modern hits at the time, which I think were like Destiny's Child, freestyle, boom funk, rock the microphone one.
Oh yeah.
Funk MC.
Yeah,
Bump,
Bomb Funk MCs.
that kind of stuff,
yeah.
and probably like Incubus and
Okay.
Pink. Pink? Yeah, Pink was
probably late 90s,
Yeah, and then those kind of artists, Blink 182 and all that stuff.
How and was it that you did the radio station to kind of get experience on the mic, or as a personality, or?
I think really just out of the pure joy that I get from music, or that I've had from music since pretty much I was 2. Just wanting to share it.
Yeah.
Because whenever I had a bad run in life, music was music.
Yeah.
You turn to music. I mean, sure, most of the time Cliff, but other artists. I mean, I've been to like so many different concerts over the years of other artists.
Yeah.
Aside from Cliff and Michael Jackson and
Yeah.
Kylie Minogue and
So sort of your music is sort of more pop sensibilities.
It weaves.
Okay.
I don't have though I have a favorite artist.
Yes.
My genre's not really there, as in it's pop, yes, but I've done Korn. I've done.
Okay. How did the last Cannibal Corpse concert go for you?
Really well, that mosh pit. I don't think they appreciated it when I threw my bra and my undies at them.
Possibly not. No. As they go, bra and undies hitting them in the face. What the fuck? Okay, so you are obviously not bound by a specific genre.
No.
Okay, so aside from Cliff, what other music were you what other artists were kind of resonating with you in high school and your 20s?
Very good question.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah.
There'll only be one very, very good question in each podcast, and unfortunately I've peaked a bit too early on this one.
Well, I think it was, you still like your the artists that were coming and going at the time.
Yeah.
Like even Pink, like I think her first album, Can't Take Me Home, was there, and I remember that.
Yeah.
And, you have your favorites of hers, and always Cliff. But Kylie Minogue and I think Blink 182 and Incubus and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, okay.
You weave in and out, but I think most of my variations did happen around high school, after high school.
Okay, yeah.
When you weave into like Korn and Limp Bizkit.
That's the new metal era, right?
I think it was, yeah.
So that's kind of really late 90s.
Yeah,
the
into
2000s.
The 2000s.
Yeah.
And Offspring.
That was probably a bit earlier. When they broke was earlier. That was about 95.
Yeah. And like you remember the Get a Job and.
Yep.
And the other one, which was.
Oh man, it was Pretty Fly for a White Guy, Low Self-Esteem. Yeah. There's Come Out and Play was the first song that kind of broke them.
Yeah.
As a punk band, but okay, so that's interesting. Right, Cliff, obviously, kind of the overarching presence in your life.
Yeah, and then underneath you've got your Michael Jackson.
Yep.
Always Michael Jackson as well.
Do you remember? So I'm going to
Do
throw.
I remember the time?
Yep.
Do you?
Yep.
Yeah.
When you
When
fell
we
in love.
fell in love?
That's
Yeah,
one. Yeah.
yeah.
No. Do you? So it was interesting. Like, and I'm going to throw forward a little bit to the retail days of JB Hi-Fi.
Mm-hmm.
There was you in the Linmore branch that was the Cliff Richard super fan.
Yep.
You said Michael Jackson. Do you know that there was a Michael Jackson super fan at Manico?
No.
Yes. So I'm gonna say a name, and if you remember it, great. If you don't, that's fine. Ricky Chetty.
Vaguely, I think.
Yeah. So he was just the super fan.
Yeah.
And when Michael passed, he actually took the day off.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think I remember going into work that day.
Yeah, I did.
And we had I think we turned the TVs to some TV station at the time. I think it was maybe C4 or something like that. And
yeah,
Michael
just
Jackson
all day.
Yeah.
So it was interesting, because I sort of floated between the two stores, and it was kind of interesting that there was a pop artist super fan in one store and another pop artist super fan in another store.
Yeah,
it was hilarious. Okay, so let's sort of go back to your, I guess, 20s.
Mm-hmm.
What you said you ended up in retail. Is that where your retail journey started, and where did it start?
Yeah, retail journey did start there, I think, early 2000s.
Yeah.
It's been about 25 years that I was in retail.
Yeah.
Briscoe's.
Oh.
Casual checkout operator, I think.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and then worked the way up into assistant manager. And then from there into Dick Smith.
That was the other place I
Yeah.
remember we connected as well.
Yeah, store manager in a couple of those branches. I think Henderson in that.
Yeah.
And then your JB days. And what was after JB Hi-Fi? Oh, the move up here.
That's right, because you were with JB
it
for almost
JB
a decade?
Yeah.
It was a while.
Yeah,
you were one of the...
Just over 10 years,
You were one of the senior stalwarts.
Yeah, always, always there.
Yeah.
Part of the furniture.
I really want to ask a retail question from your perspective, and I too escaped from the clutches of retail. So let's not wear the rose tinted glasses, but let's also not be too harsh about it, because retail is a career for some people, and for me it was. I was in there for so long.
Yeah, same.
Your time in retail, how did you sort of find it? And did it was it just one of those things where it's like, this is easy, I can do it with my eyes closed, and I can get home and I don't have to think about too much shit. I can do what I love as well, and it pays the bills.
I think so, but also sometimes, sometimes you take work home with you. I think as you progress up the ladder.
Yeah, till I see manager.
Yeah. It's there. It's always in your mind. You're always thinking about it. But I think, again, being with JB for so long allowed me to, you build up your leave, and it allows you to explore other options.
Yes.
You can go away, and I think, my first time overseas was 2013. Probably my first time even on a plane was 2013. That was to England with my cousin and my auntie. And
wait, 2000? That would have been shit. I would have been at Linmore.
I think you were at Linmore.
I think I was.
Yeah.
Hang on, that was your first time on a plane?
That was my first time on a plane.
Wow.
Yeah, June. We went to England.
Yeah.
Terrible luck. First time on a plane. Flew Cathay Pacific. Here to Hong Kong to England. My birthday, I turned... Can't remember.
I turned old.
I turned old. Yeah. I turned old on the plane.
Yeah.
And I think as we were taking up my seat, I was in the middle seat, this water just poured on me. God only knows where it came from. And probably God only wants to know where it came from.
Yeah.
But I remember sitting in 8-9 hours on the plane, just wet,
drenched.
And we were near the start of economy, and it was my birthday, and I was wet, and I was like, is there like room up there? 'Cause
Yeah.
there's no room down here. Is there a room up there?
Yeah.
Shut the curtains. No, not at all. But we're sorry this happened to you. We've got nothing to give you.
Wow. Okay, clearly giving you the preferential treatment.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
Cathay Pacific, right?
Yeah.
Quality airline. They're not around anymore, are they?
No, well, no, I think.
I wonder why.
Had it have been now, I probably could have said, "Don't you know who I am?"
Yeah. I've said this to a couple of ladies. It's like, you look like someone that would speak to the manager.
But I think for like an hour, I was sat in the stewardesses their like basic chair thing.
Oh, the fold down.
The fold down
Wow,
thing near the
okay.
door.
Yeah.
And that freaked the shit out of me. So I was like, I'll go back to my my wet chair.
Yeah.
And they brought me like a glass of champagne and
Oh, bless, because
like
that
a little
buys silence.
piece of cake. And when I left, they gave me a card signed from the crew. Happy birthday.
Okay, well that's.
Well, we landed in England, and I think because I was so exhausted, I was a bit of a culture shock as well,
Yeah,
and I was like,
yeah.
no, I don't think this is for me. But then,
And how long had you booked off?
I think it was 6 weeks.
Okay, and
Yeah,
you land and you go, no, I'm good.
And that night,
Can I go home?
I had to travel, I think, an hour or 2 hours on a train
Yeah.
on my birthday to see Cliff
Right. Wow.
at Hatfield House on a still reeling, rocking English leg of the tour. And I remember thinking, I don't know how I can do this. I don't think this is me. I don't think I can do traveling. I don't think I like being out of New Zealand.
Yeah.
I think the culture shock really started in Hong Kong when I got off in the airport, and the police were carrying big rifles.
Right. Yeah.
and,
Actual like weapons.
First time seeing
Yeah.
that. But then I think I had a rest, and then got onto the underground and then the tube, and then you experience what you don't experience in New Zealand: public transport. Well, you mean you miss something and 2 minutes later is another one, not like
Yeah.
you got to wait 6 days for another one.
Yeah.
And we travelled there, and I think got there, and Cliff came out on stage, and all your troubles melt away, and I was like, yeah, no, this is me. I can't do
Yeah.
this.
How many shows did you see while you were on holiday?
There, one. That was it.
Really? He wasn't doing like.
He was, but that was the only one that I had got given a ticket to.
Okay.
From a lady at the time, and there was a Cliff Richard Radio Facebook, but the radio station hadn't started yet,
Okay. Yep.
and so people knew of me, but they didn't know me. So I
Right.
had a friend. She's one of my best friends now.
Yeah.
Well, I think I've known her for so long. She's like family to me.
Yeah.
In England, Linda Bailey, and she's from Stoke-on-Trent. At that concert, she was looking out for me. She had no idea what I looked like,
Really?
but she was looking out for me.
Yeah.
We didn't meet then, and we didn't meet until I think my second time over in England in 2015 for his 75th
Wow.
tour.
Okay.
But yeah, I think I was like, I can do this. Travelled around England. I think we went to Clacton. I didn't really know the history of Clacton and Cliff until afterwards.
Wait. So you did you kind of do a Cliff tour? Well, like a Cliff Contiki or something?
Not really. I think it was just really, I went with my auntie and my cousin, and we just done the London experience, and then we went to Coventry and stayed with her sister for a few weeks.
Right,
and
okay.
Went to Torquay and those kind of places. We started in Clacton, and I didn't really know Cliff's connection there was, he was discovered in London, of course.
Yeah.
At the Two Eyes. But his first performance with the Drifters at the time, because they were in the Shadows,
Yeah.
was at Butlins
In Clacton.
Holiday Park in Clacton.
Wow.
And they were part of the Red Coat
Far out.
Entertainment Squad. Yeah, and I didn't know the connection
Now,
until then.
Would that have been something similar to TV show,
Heidi High. Yeah.
I had wondered.
Yeah.
Guys, if you're listening or watching this, we are really showing our age right about now.
I thought you were going to say that we are really old.
No, or I'm really old.
Well, I'm getting there.
You've still got 10 years, bro. Cut yourself some slack. What the hell? Okay, all right. So Heidi High was a TV show set in a summer camp in a particular seaside resort or something like that. And they used to have entertainers that would come and like perform essentially for the whole season, right?
Yep.
And that was Cliff's first thing. Wow.
That was one of his first things. Yeah.
Far out.
Yeah,
Okay.
and there is an old recording which I've obtained, bootleg
Yes.
performance of that. And this was just as Move It was really getting there,
Wow.
and because, when he signed the contract in that with EMI,
Yeah.
back in the day, the song that they wanted to push was not Move It. It was the B-side. The A-side was Schoolboy Crush.
Are you kidding me?
And then he met, his manager introduced him to, at the time, a guy called Jack Good.
Yeah.
And he was hosting a show called Oh Boy. The
Okay,
Oh Boy
right.
Show.
Yep.
Yep. And, they asked Cliff to be on it. And they said, but, he's not singing the single release. We won't have him singing Schoolboy Crush. Because his daughter at the time flipped it over and preferred Move It.
Crazy.
So they said,
Wow.
to the label, if you want Cliff,
Yeah.
he's got to sing Move It, not Schoolboy Crush.
Yeah.
And so it was flipped. And
Wow.
it was Move It. And then that's how it started. And, there's a lot of people that say, even John Lennon said, without Cliff and Move It, there was nothing worth listening to
Yeah.
in
Wow.
English radio.
Yeah.
You had your Elvis, at the time. Of course, Cliff said, had there been no Elvis Presley, there would have been no Cliff Richard. Because Cliff's idol was Elvis.
Oh, okay.
And for Cliff,
right.
like me, not
Yeah.
comparing myself to Cliff, but, our idols
Yes.
started with, one particular song. For him, he was with his mates in town, and
Yeah.
a car that they went past, he listened in, and they was playing Heartbreak Hotel.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And
I
so
can
that
see that.
stuck
That's a
with Cliff.
great track.
Yeah.
Dynamically,
Yeah.
it's beautiful, very well written.
And that's basically where it all started with Cliff.
Okay. Far out. What was the one? Okay. You said you're not going to compare yourself to Cliff, right? 'Cause you can't, right?
No.
Superstar.
Yeah. Yeah, Sir Cliff.
Sir Cliff.
Yeah.
What would be the one song that, because you obviously saw the Cliff in the Shadows.
Yep.
Was there one song in that concert that you were like, yeah, okay, you got me?
Probably would have been Move It. But I think towards the end, the very last, he sung it twice,
Yeah.
was We Don't Talk Anymore.
Really?
And that was not a song with the Shads, but
No, no.
They decided to do it on this particular show. He came out singing Move It in his, like he did back in 1958.
Yep.
Pink jacket,
Yep.
pink socks, pink belt, black pants.
Look the part.
Looked the part.
Yep.
And then halfway through intermission, it was filmed in Birmingham. He comes out in like, we call it now, we refer to it like a feather duster, like the feather duster jacket.
Okay, yeah.
And he's got all these things coming off him, like feather duster. And
Yeah,
you're like, wow.
yeah.
Maybe that's what got me too, the hip,
The feather duster?
the feather duster. No, but the stuff that he wore as well, because Cliff has always been out there. He hasn't been, with the times. He's not afraid to wear, in 1958, a man wearing a pink jacket.
Yeah.
And then,
He always was the dude that danced to the beat of his own drum, right?
Yeah.
Like, he wasn't as, like, you, in the same breath, you could also say that Liberace danced to the beat of his own drum,
absolutely.
right? And he was
Yep.
probably more flamboyant than Cliff was, but...
And Elton.
Yep, yeah. Elton.
He dances to a lot of
that.
different drums.
Yeah, well, and sometimes there'd be a few.
Yeah. And he was a big fan of Cliff.
Yeah.
He was, Cliff started it for him.
Yeah.
almost. You know,
That's
I think
funny.
Cliff took him to. His mum took Alton. I think his name's like Reginald.
Reginald, yep.
Yeah. Took little old Reginald to a Cliff concert when he was 3.
Wow.
And he was a fan. And then I think it was in the 80s, 88, where they done a duet together, Slow Rivers, which
Oh, wow.
wasn't a massive hit
No.
because it was on Alton's Leather Jackets album, which was probably
Yeah.
recorded on drugs. And I read
Yes.
his book, and
Yeah.
sure enough, all recorded.
There was a lot of things going on at the time.
Yeah, and he was on Cliff's show special at the time, Cliff from the Hip.
Yep. Right.
And,
right.
you know, Elton John's coming up out of the stage singing his Leather Jacket song with
Yeah.
this bright pink mohawk.
Yeah. Yeah. It's look, the 80s were a different time.
Yeah.
It was an experience in the 80s as a child who, you know, I mean, yeah, the 80s is what the 80s is, really. Now, it's interesting that you say we don't talk we don't talk anymore.
Yeah,
and it's funny because I hear that, and I as soon as I said it, I was like, wait, that's the Charlie Puth and Selena Gomez song. I was like, I'm sure it's not. And then I played it through my head. It's not funny how we... No, it is We Don't Talk Anymore.
Yeah.
Because that's, as we sort of mentioned before, that's Peak Cliff, right? And now he had that. He had Wired for Sound, which is the one that I know.
Yeah.
But what other bangers was Cliff dropping during the 80s?
During the 80s, we had Little Love. Probably not so big over here.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, now Living Doll, was that in the 80s?
Living Doll, yeah. The re-recording was in
With Young Ones.
86, I think.
Yep.
That was the Red Nose.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, Red Nose Cancer Appeal.
Yeah.
Kids Cancer.
Comic Relief.
Comic Relief, thank you.
That's it. Yeah,
Yep.
you know, and you had your Rick Mayles in that, and yeah.
Yeah.
So popular, he became the first artist to have the same song go into the charts twice. Living Doll was his first number 1 in
Yes,
59.
it was. Yeah.
Yep, and then to have it again with
The Young Ones.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then there was, you know, the live in concert where all the Comic Relief, as they did, I think, just a few weeks ago in England, Comic Relief again.
Yeah.
And he wasn't going to appear on stage with the Young Ones because he was doing Time, a musical, which went for a year on the West End.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And so he played a rock star on Time.
Because of course he did.
Defending the Earth.
Because
You know,
I mean,
against
why not?
the Time Lords, because why
Yeah.
not? And it was Sir Laurence Olivier was a big holographic head.
Wow.
Yeah. That came down, and, you know, he had to say, you know, you can't get rid of Earth because, you know, we're born to rock and roll and that kind of stuff.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And the Young Ones did their bit, and of course, you know how vulgar the Young Ones can be.
Absolutely.
And Rick being the big, you know.
Oh, Rick is the best.
Yeah, and the big Cliff fan that he is.
Yes.
May he rest in peace.
He was a
Yeah.
my guitarist my guitarist in my band that I was playing in at Linmore. He had lived in London for a little while, and he asked Rick if he could take a photo, and Rick just said "fuck off," and then so he showed me this photo that he took, and it's Rick Mail bending over having a look at a book, and he's like just behind him. That's the closest he got to a photo with Rick Mail, and he's like, "Bro, I got a photo with Rick Mail," and it's like, holy shit, he doesn't really do anything. It's like, yeah, check it out, and it's like him going like that, and Rick's like going just hunched over, fucking flicking through a record collection or something like that. It's like, that's not a photo with Rick Mail. It's a photo adjacent to him.
That was backside.
Yes, but you have a photo with Sir Cliff, don't you?
I do. Yep. I think I interviewed him a few months after I started Cliff Richard Radio.
Yeah.
I got an email saying, you know, Cliff would like to be part of your radio station, and I interviewed him. I've never interviewed anyone in my life like that.
Yeah.
And let alone someone who I admired since I was 2 years old. And I remember it was a few days, I was like, how do I pull this off, you know?
Yeah.
What do you ask? Because why would you want to ask the same questions that every Tom, Dick, and Harry can ask you?
Yeah.
And to this day, people still say that the interview with us was just like two friends talking.
Really?
And because I wasn't interested in getting to know the stuff that people have been asking him for years, you know.
Yeah.
Why are you not married? Are you gay? Those kind of stuff.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
The real
The
topical shit.
What
Yeah,
started
wow.
it off, and you know, just the basic
Yeah.
stuff. But and I remember, I think, a half an hour. He was in Barbados at the time, Barbados or Portugal, one of the two, at one of his homes, and he Skyped in. I remember half an hour before thinking, you know, my goodness, I'm going to throw up.
Yeah. Oh,
Nervous as
anxiety
heck.
would have been through the
was
roof.
horrible.
Yeah, man.
But then, you know, I answered the phone and I was like, hello. And he goes, hi, Paul, it's Cliff Richard. And, you know, the first time, you know, you address him and you get told, you know, just address him as Sir Cliff, and then you find to drop it.
Yeah.
And so you drop it. But after that, he just puts you at ease straight away.
Wow.
He just, there's nothing. It was just like, just how I'm talking to you now.
Man, you know, so it's really, really funny that you sort of say that, right? We've been doing the podcast now for, it'll be 3 years by the time this one comes out. There's only been one time where I've been really, really nervous, and that was when I sat across in the chair from the lead singer of She Hard, John Toogood. And I'd been a fan of his since I was 16, 17. I discovered them in high school, saw them tour, and you know, when me and a bunch of mates were able to get into a R18 venue illegally because we knew a guy. But to actually sit down with him, and after having been a fan of his for, I don't know, like nearly 30 years, over 30 years, and just to actually talk to him, it was ridiculously hard not to fanboy out. You know, so was it something similar for you?
Something similar, yeah, absolutely.
You know,
but I didn't feel afraid to talk about the music that other people, other interviewers wouldn't, because, you know, other interviewers wouldn't care that Green Light and, you know, Rock and Roll Juvenile, all their albums and all that, they'd just be on Summer Holiday, Bachelor Boy. We don't talk anymore, which are great.
Yeah.
But, you know, you want to talk about the history and the deep cuts.
You're talking about doing that, to me, feels like a cop-out. Because it's like you're having a discussion around the greatest hits album.
Yeah.
And you don't want to know about the greatest hits because fucking everyone knows
the
greatest
knows.
hits, right?
Yeah.
You know, you want to talk about the shit where it's like, cool. Yep. You know, and I did some of that with John, and producer Andrew was in the studio, and by his own admission, there was one moment in there particularly where I was like, oh my God. But then it was more of a discovery about who he was as a person. And I think once you can kind of get to that place where you are having those really honest conversations, that's where the good stuff starts coming, because it's not a by the numbers thing.
No,
you know. So for John, I could have gone, so you started She Had and blah. Your first EP was blah. Tell us about your first album, blah.
Yeah.
You know, it was just like, well, no, every other interviewer's asked that shit. That's boring. How about we not do that?
Yeah.
How about you talk about how you were stuck in Melbourne during lockdown and your mum was dying?
Yeah.
What the hell? That was a heavy
Yep.
podcast. And we were sort of talking about all that. I was like, oh my God, I'm sitting there going, this is fucking amazing.
Yeah.
But he's just opening up. Similar.
Yeah. And when you get Cliff, you know, when you've got a rapport with him and he will talk.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, you just don't get the yes, no answers that you'd get normally.
Yeah.
You know, he'd open up and then you can weave your way through, and I really still didn't have the experience, but I knew my Cliff history.
Yeah.
To be able to talk through it all. And 2014, not long before our first year on air, you know, our first birthday bash.
Yeah. Yeah.
The shit hit the fan for Cliff in his life when he was accused of
all
that
we
shit.
won't go through it because that was a really dark time,
absolutely.
and he went through hell.
Yeah, it was like a quagmire, and he had like signals and all that kind of crap.
Yeah.
A year later, sold out for his 75th birthday.
Yep.
Royal Albert Hall, 6 nights. Then, you know, there was Manchester, Birmingham, but, you know, at Liverpool and all that, but it ended with 6 nights at the Royal Albert Hall. And he came on stage with a song that he'd done in 2008 called Golden.
Okay.
And we had done, when that started, I'd done a campaign to yes, to get him back in the charts, but to show him that his fans were still there. And I chose a song from the album in 1993 called "I Still Believe in You."
Okay. Seems
appropriate
though. It's a great title.
Absolutely, and fans downloaded it. We didn't get it to number 1. I think we got it to number 39, I think it was. But, we got it out there, and the fans were, letting him know that, we were behind him.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff. And then, so, 2015, he came on stage and sung a song called Golden.
Okay.
And it was dedicated to the fans.
Yeah, wow.
For that rubbish, and standing by him. And one of the lines is, "You have been golden." And he comes on stage, Royal Albert Hall. This is goosebump stuff for me.
Yeah.
Comes on stage, thunderous applause, standing ovations that last for 2-3 minutes. And then the spotlight falls and it's just him singing Golden. And it's just really just him and the piano player.
Wow.
And words like "Destiny have brought us to this moment."
Yeah.
"I stand before you now with no regrets." And that's how it started. When most Cliff concerts in the past would, you'd belt out to Wide for Sound and the arena would be, singing to Wide for Sound. But for him to come out and just be one with the audience for the very first song. And it was quite emotional. Even for him.
Were you there?
I was there.
Yeah, wow.
I made the venture over for the 75th,
Wow.
just for the Royal Albert Hall nights.
Yep, right.
And he got quite emotional.
Mm-hmm.
His birthday night, I'll take it back to the first night. There's a Cliff Mosh pit that happens.
I'm sorry. Let's just quickly dive into that for just a moment. Did you say Cliff Mosh pit?
Yeah. There's a point in the second half. I don't know who decides it, okay? But it happens at some point in the second half where there's a rush to the stage.
Okay.
Yeah. And you're all there dancing and yahooing and all that. And So, a lot of these grannies, they're quite fast. Yes. And, I may have upset quite a large fan base right now. But, I don't mean it like that.
You're not saying it out of malice.
No, I love each and every one of them.
The grannies deserve love too.
They can get quite vicious.
God, be the kid.
Yes.
Stomped on with the zipper front. Ah, my foot. Get the fuck out of the way.
There was this one. There was this one. Okay.
Just talk. I can't.
She probably, she's probably given up listening and all to, and the fan base, and she was. Everybody's gonna know who I'm talking about in the Cliff world, but she was a little lady.
Yes.
And she used her height as a weapon, and she'd get quite vicious. I think now we call her like the poisonous dwarf, and she's had several restraining orders against Cliff.
Oh my god! And you said it, a Snow White's just come out too! This has devolved into something unbelievable!
I don't even know how we got there, but we did.
I'm gonna have to watch this back and go, I now know how we got there. Okay. I'm gonna... The host isn't meant to lose it like this. It's honestly not. Okay.
You have to battle your way through to get there.
Oh. I mean, what's if you've broken hips between friends?
Yeah, and just because you're young doesn't mean to say that you can get to the stage. As soon as that rush happens, it's every person for themselves.
Oh, okay.
Regardless of age.
Oh.
Because a lot of them can outrun.
Okay. I have 2 questions. First off, what's the nearest hospital to the Royal Albert? And second...
Funnily enough, it's the one that the Queen went to.
Second question, was there an increase in elderly admittance that night?
No! For me, probably.
Surgery spiked
But
on the first night.
it happens all the time at every show, regardless. You know,
Oh, okay.
there's just this moment, and the moment I think happened to be, and you can see it back in some of his DVDs, where even the shock on his face, he's like, "Shit, there they all are, here they come."
Like the wave of zombies.
Yes,
Like Walking Dead or World War Z
and
just
we're all
coming for you. Just
we're all just trying to get there. Yeah,
touch you.
we're all just trying to get there.
Brains. No.
That's not even where I was going with the story.
Oh shit. Okay. All right.
But
okay.
it was in there, and
Yeah. Okay.
it was to celebrate his 75th birthday.
75th birthday.
Well, this wasn't the birthday night, but it was the first night at
Okay.
Royal Albert Hall.
Yeah.
We were down
We're
there.
composed.
Yeah, and I was videoing, and he was singing "We Don't Talk Anymore," and the balloons. He comes out
absolutely.
like he did in 1989 at the event. He came out with these big, huge balloons that he hits into the,
Yep.
and everyone just bounces him around.
Yep.
Well, one of his balloons went right into
Smashed
me.
into the camera.
Right into me.
Wow.
Camera drops, and you can see on the video people just looking. So I got hit by a cliff balloon. Not many people can say that,
No.
No. And
Not many people can say they've
Well-
been hit by a Cliff Zimmer frame either.
there was none at the time because I don't think you're allowed them in there. But
shit. Cliff colostomy.
Dangerous weapons.
Who's that? Whose phone is that? It's oh, okay.
It's probably Cliff's PA, at me.
Yeah. Yeah, they're probably like, shit, we've heard that Paul Dyer is going to be on a podcast. We better listen in.
We've heard that. But and then it was in the, he would sing a duet at the time.
Yeah.
With his backing vocalist, one of them who was Susie Samuels, and she'd sing the duet that Cliff did with Olivia Newton-John.
Oh,
Suddenly,
okay, lovely. Yeah.
2015.
Yep.
It's his 75th birthday, October the 14th. You're there.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, Cliff's doing his thing, about to introduce the next song. And then you hear, excuse me, Cliff. And on walks, I don't know if you know him, Paul O'Grady.
Oh my God, yes.
Paul O'Grady walks in with a trench coat
Yep.
and a bag, and then he starts talking
Wow.
to Sir Cliff.
Wow.
And then these videos play of Elton John and
Yeah.
Gary Barlow and that wishing Cliff a happy birthday.
Yeah. Wow.
And then they're like, let's sing Cliff happy birthday. So we all sing happy
And
birthday.
how many does the Royal Albert hold?
I want to say like 10,000
Yeah,
people.
wow.
And, that building itself,
Oh, it's a
The
because
history.
you've got the floor, but then there's so many balconies that
you
go up
go
as well.
all the way up.
Yeah.
And I've been all the way up.
Yeah.
On that tour.
You've been in the nosebleeds.
Yeah. And you're like, that.
Yeah.
And singing happy birthday.
Yeah.
Cake comes out. Who's pushing the cake? Dame Olivia.
No way.
Yeah. And they sing happy birthday.
Yeah.
And then they hug and all that because of the shit he's been through.
Yeah.
And then they sing Suddenly together.
Oh.
Which was a moment.
Yeah.
That
Oh, yeah.
Not a lot of people, could say that they've seen. Could say that they've seen. But in 98, she had gone through in the 90s cancer.
Yep. Yeah. Yep.
Breast cancer.
She had a real rough time.
And in 98, Cliff was coming here to do his 40th anniversary.
Yeah.
And he said at the time, Olivia, I'd like you to come and be my special guest.
Yeah.
So she did, and, I got the opportunity to see Olivia for the first time there.
Wow.
But seen in 2015, of course, was on another level.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Comfortably.
of what he'd gone through,
Yeah.
what she had gone through, and out of this world experience.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't too many years after that she passed, right?
Yeah, just 2-3 years ago
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. It wasn't that long ago.
Yeah. And they were the best of friends.
Yeah.
Romantically, I think maybe there could have been something, there should have been something, maybe in the 80s. But of course, she dated, this could have been after Greece. Olivia started out in Australia.
Yep.
But she was Cliff's backing vocalist.
Oh, wow.
In the 70s.
Wow.
And then he had his show. It's Cliff Richard on probably the BBC.
Yeah, yeah.
And she'd do guest appearances, and then she sung her song, I Honestly Love You, and all that kind of stuff. And then, so she owed,
That's a huge debt.
Yeah. Yeah, and then, because of that, there was Grease.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that whole period's a really interesting time, because I recently watched a John Farnham documentary.
Want to see that?
Yeah.
You're the Voice?
Yeah. Honestly, it talks about his career in the, I want to say late 60s, early 70s, where he's Johnny Farnham, and he does Sadie the Cleaning Lady, I think was the song that he was well known for.
Yep.
And he was struggling to kind of reinvent himself and be seen as a serious artist. He joined Little River Band, and he met Olivia not long after that. And they became very firm friends as well. So, yeah, that's really interesting.
And, of course, and then in the 70s was, after Grease, she dated and was engaged to the Shadows' Bruce Welch.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. Then she married the husband that vanished.
The husband that vanished,
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's funny, because, she had Grease, and then she had a bit of a lull, and then she had a bit of a peak again when she was doing like Xanadu and that sort of stuff, which was peak 80s.
Yeah.
With stuff that was written by Jeff Lynne from Electric Light Orchestra.
Yeah, absolutely.
Man, the music knowledge is deep. I didn't realise how deep it was. So, yeah, it's kind of interesting, and I know I from what I know of Jeff Lynne, he very much admired Cliff as a songwriter.
2017, when Cliff was doing his Just Fabulous Rock and Roll tour, which was a lot of outside venues.
Yeah,
he was rehearsing in London because they get together like 6 weeks before and do 6 weeks of rehearsals. And who was in the studio next to him? Jeff Lynne.
Yeah.
And they met. And
Mr. Blue Sky himself, yeah. Okay, we're going to wrap this up soon, but I do have a question for you. Has there ever been a period of time in your life where Cliff hasn't been as prominent?
No.
So
he's always it's always been there. Like for me.
So he's always been front and center, or has he always been like sometimes he's front and center, sometimes he's on the periphery?
Yeah, sometimes he's on the periphery.
Yeah, periphery.
That word.
Yep.
Yeah.
The PP word. Yep.
Yep. The good PP word. Yeah.
That is. It's the positive PP word.
Yeah. Always been there.
Yeah.
Whenever there was rough patches, it was always like a Cliff concert I'd put on, or a movie. Holiday,
right.
Young Ones, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Always there.
Yeah.
But as you go in life, and life deals you certain cards, it was always a Cliff concert that was put on, or Cliff music. And then, when I met almost 9 years ago, my partner, Matt, Cliff, didn't really know who Cliff was, but now there's a radio station in his house.
Exactly.
And he's come on tour with me many times to a Cliff concert.
And there's also some exciting news about Cliff this year, isn't there, as well? Share that with everyone.
Yeah, well, it was announced last year on his birthday that he was coming back, and we never thought this would happen, coming back to New Zealand and Australia. We'd pretty much written him off, because the last time we was here was in 2013, and he's 83, 84 now.
I was about to ask how old he's. 83.
Yeah,
wow.
And you're like, he's not going to tour now down here, so the only chances that we'd get would be to go to England, to the Royal Albert Hall, and that to see Cliff.
Now, if you were to put on your hat as a long-term Cliff Richard fan, and obviously we're talking decades, right?
Yep.
This show, for you, are you going into it going, I'm going to be expecting to see the Cliff that I know and love, and he's going to be at the same energy level, or are you expecting him to go, I'm going to see Cliff in his early to mid 80s just perform?
I think pretty much. You know, I think your expectations drop a lot when you know your artist is, you know,
Well, they're aging like we all
aging.
do, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and I don't expect him to run around the stage like he used to. I mean, he did in 2015, 17, and last time I seen him in 2018. Was going to see him in 2020, but then, you know, the world stopped.
World went sideways,
you know,
rather quickly.
And his Great 80 tour that was supposed to be there was postponed to the year after, but we still couldn't travel. So
Yeah.
And then, of course, again, life hits you, and you know, things go sideways. And was always planning to see Cliff again, but didn't think it would be here. And the tour, funnily enough, is called "Can't Stop Me Now."
Wow.
Can't stop me now.
No. You know, hopefully he goes out on a high note. From everything that I had read and seen of Cliff Richard, he was always the consummate performer, the consummate professional.
Yeah.
And I don't imagine he would be like, well, bank account's getting a bit low.
Yeah.
probably need to whip out another tour.
Well, I mean, you always ask him, you know, when are you going to retire? And he goes, I don't think I'll retire. I'll slow down because, you know, book the Royal Albert Hall 6 years in advance if you want to. And if, you know, if I want to record an album, I'll record an album. But, you know, none of these big world tours that he used to back in, you know.
No, God, no.
back in the day. So that's why we're surprised to get him again down here in New Zealand and Australia. And very lucky because other places, you know, that want him.
He's missing them out.
Yeah, he's missing them out.
Really?
He's here. And then he's going back because normally we'd get him. The period used to be you get Cliff in the summer in January and February.
Yeah.
But now we're getting him, you know, at the start
Yep.
of summer. And then he's going back.
Yeah.
So he starts off in Perth, which makes sense because less jet lag.
Yes.
But then he's flying to London and then he's doing tours in England.
Okay.
Just a handful of tours.
Yeah.
And yeah, then that'll be it until...
Who knows when?
Who knows when.
Wow.
But, you know... He always gives 100%.
Yeah.
Other artists I've seen, you know, you're the Rayhanas and that of the day, you go and see them and they're lip syncing. They're not even trying to give it 100%.
Right, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
her CD's playing and she's like, yeah. You know.
Yes.
Yeah, that was her. That was her show.
Yeah.
You know, and then you get artists like Michael Jackson who is into it. And you don't mind the odd lip sync because of what he's giving, his energy and his dance levels are out there.
Yeah, definitely.
So you don't mind, you know, the occasional lip sync.
Yeah.
But you don't get that with Cliff. It's always been his voice.
Yeah.
And if you don't get him dancing like he used to, so be it. You know?
I think, if people at his age could do what he does, that would be impressive.
Yeah.
So
I think he still wants to perform at 100.
Yeah.
You know, do a concert at 100 years old. He plays tennis like there's no tomorrow. You know?
I can't even play tennis now. But good for him. Shut up. Don't laugh at me, producer Andrew. I'm uncoordinated like that. Okay, one last question. Are you going to try and make all of the Australasia shows?
At the moment, just Auckland.
Okay, why not do the run? Why not?
I know, why not? You know, and it's possible.
It is.
I'd like to
book the flight, even if you just do the New Zealand 3.
Yeah,
just book everything.
Yeah, it's 2 in Auckland, then you got your Wellington and then your Christchurch, which is possible. It's doable.
It is.
You know, and then because before that you've got your Australia because he starts there.
Yeah.
I'd like to see him in either Perth or Sydney.
Yeah.
We go to Sydney a lot, you know,
okay.
me and Matt, and Sydney is, you know, like London in our blood.
Yeah.
So I think seeing, and you know, you'd go there and see musical, like we've seen Wicked and all that recently.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and we were there, you know, just a couple of weeks back and we seen Hadestown. And I think just to see Cliff there would be the icing on the cake. I've seen him here, obviously.
Yeah.
In 1995, you know, I was 10.
Yeah.
At the big
That's
top,
crazy.
the tent.
Mount
Smart Super Top.
Yeah. Wow.
And then I seen him in England on my birthday and many times since.
Yeah.
Also 2017 in Denmark in Aalborg. Outside venue.
It's rather random, but yeah.
Very random. Yeah. And Belfast.
Yeah.
Aalborg, you'd never get Aalborg pouring down with rain. There was no allocated seating, so it was first in, first served, queued up.
Rushing of grannies.
Rushing about 10 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah.
Cliff, well, we haven't talked about it, but Cliff owned a vineyard, and his wine was Vita Nova.
Because of course it is.
The singer.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
queuing up at 9:10 in the morning, and you don't get the wine over here. You've got to go to England or Portugal or Denmark to where they sell the wine.
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of fan friends bring wine, and you can
Because of course they do.
bring wine in the queues,
Yeah.
and, you know.
Yeah.
So what if Paul was drunk at 11 o'clock in the morning, you know? By the time Cliff came on stage at 9 o'clock at night, I was
9
sober.
o'clock at night.
Yes.
Oh my God, you would have had time to be drunk,
And
hungover, and then
I
back
had the
to
whole lot,
recovery.
you know. Yeah. And from the word go, it was pissing down with rain at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
You don't take raincoats on holiday with you.
No, you don't.
So trying to find a poncho or something, you know.
Yeah.
But I was in a bush at 3 o'clock in the afternoon watching Cliff do a sound check with the best of them, you know. Because why not? If I could have climbed the tree, I would have.
Yeah.
But, you know.
You possibly could have fallen out of the tree
Possibly
quite as
could have,
easily as
yeah.
well. Yeah.
But, you know, and meeting Cliff in 2015
Yeah.
was, from my friend Linda, I got an email on the day from her
Yeah.
saying, you're going to meet Cliff. And I didn't know what was happening. I didn't go there with the intention to England to meet Cliff, just to celebrate the 75th birthday
Yeah,
of the concerts,
wow.
you know. And I got there, and it was like, but you're going to go to a sound check. And it was just me and her in the Royal Albert Hall.
Wait, hang on. Just the two of you.
Royal Albert Hall.
Oh my God.
Watching what was probably about an hour and a half of a sound check. And him singing, looking at you,
Yeah.
and just singing Golden
Yeah.
was goosebump stuff.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was supposed to be half an hour, and it was like an hour and a half, you know,
You got your own private concert.
Yeah, and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry for keeping you so long, but, you know, I'm really sorry." Fucking hell, mate.
Yeah.
Don't worry about us,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
don't
No.
don't let the others in.
Carry on for
Carry
another
on.
hour, please.
You know, because he's polite as anything.
Yeah.
You know, and then he comes down and, you know,
Yeah.
he meets you, you talk, and you have your photographs done in there, and it's
Yeah.
a very surreal moment.
Yeah.
Absolutely surreal moment. And I had the pleasure of interviewing him again in 2020 for an album at the time, Music the Air That I Breathe. And I felt more comfortable in the sense that I could ask questions that, again, others wouldn't. And we did a quick fire round, and I asked, "What colour is your toothbrush?"
Okay.
Who else?
No one.
No one's
I'll
going
make
to
sure.
ask what is.
Yeah.
It was black.
Yes.
And of course, you know, the day that the podcast came out and it broadcast on Cliff Richard Radio, the sales of black toothbrushes went through the roof, you know. And just like his wine, when, you know,
Yeah. Well. Yeah.
the wine went to number one.
Yeah.
You know, toilet paper, eat your heart out. Cliff was number one, knocked toilet
Yeah.
paper off
Yeah.
the charts.
Wine.
You know, if there's a chart for, you know,
Yeah.
chart for Cliff to top, you know,
Yeah.
we'll get in there.
Absolutely.
You know?
That's far out. I as someone who is known as a bit of a music aficionado, and I have a understanding of music and movies or TV shows. I'm sure producer Andrew will attest to that.
Yeah. Me too.
Your knowledge is like there's probably like people my age that knew of him and stuff like that. Then there's like people that maybe are a little bit older that have had like a little bit longer with him.
Yep.
And then there's the fans. And you're somewhere down about here in terms of like, it's the iceberg thing.
Yeah.
And you can hear it when you speak. You can hear how you talk about him. And it's, you know, I say this, but not in a piss take thing or anything like that, but it's fucking hilarious. because we could probably sit here and talk about Cliff for hours.
Absolutely.
And I make the commitment to you on the podcast. I will come on your podcast and we can sit down and do that shit, because there's, as I said, with I guess with my experiences of Cliff as a bit of a layman, there's that different perspective.
Yep.
So thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
The podcast, man. I'm so looking forward to coming on yours when you're ready.
Yeah, absolutely.
This you know what, producer Andrew, this is our first collab. It is. It'll be the first podcast collab, so I'm very excited. So Paul, thank you so much for joining us on the Northland Artist.
Me.
Dude, very cool.
Yeah, thank you.
It's awesome. There you go, everyone. Don't say I didn't warn you in advance. That third act I was talking with Paul afterwards. He said he can't even remember how the grannies came up. To be honest, neither can I. But as soon as they came up, I knew all bets were off. And, yep, they absolutely were. Producer Andrew, welcome.
Hello.
Okay. So aside from the fact that you ended up on the floor almost bursting into tears with laughter, because I saw you, what were the takeaways for you from the podcast?
I have no idea.
None?
I don't. Yeah, that third part just
the third act
threw me way off. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Yep. No, fair play.
kind of detracts a little bit.
Yeah.
Yep. I really admired his passion for like one artist. I've never really been like that. I've always had like range and kind of. I've been a bit of a genre hog in parts. So for him to kind of just hone in on one, and base his whole kind of creative outlet on it.
Yeah. It's so interesting, right? He talks about how at 2 finding. Sir Cliff Richard,
young.
And then as kind of the podcast sort of continues, as we get towards the end, after we get through the chaos and carnage third, right at the very end, he even admits, he said, Sir Cliff is either always right at the front as his favourite artist or on the periphery. However, as big life events happen, he always goes back to Sir Cliff.
Yeah, he just gravitates back towards.
Yeah. What he knows, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's interesting, like, as someone who has, I would consider my music knowledge and, artists that I've looked up to over my years, going from, like, Aha to Def Leppard and Motley Crue and all that sort of stuff. I never really stuck with one artist for a great length of time. Yeah. I've either been a huge fan and then left and then come back and rediscovered them.
Yeah, that's kind of my thing as well. Like I'll go through a phase of like not listening to Homebrew and then you just dive back in and you might find a B-sides album that they've just dropped on the sly.
Yeah, or you hear new things in the music, right?
Yeah, and I find new headphones change that too.
Yeah,
or
definitely.
New speakers in the car or whatever. You can
new environment, even around new people.
Yeah, exactly. You find a new appreciation of everything. Yeah. So I can relate to that kind of gravitating back towards a certain artist.
Yeah, definitely. And Paul's, you can tell that Paul's knowledge on Sir Cliff Richard is deep.
Yeah.
And I am looking forward to being on his podcast. I said at the end of the podcast that I would be on his, and I'm actually genuinely looking forward to it. It'll be, I think it's going to be an absolute blast. I don't know if it will be quite as carnagey or chaotic as ours ended up, but you know what? I've said this from day one, and I'll say it again now. I have no idea where the podcasts are going to go.
No.
And they'll go wherever the guest wants to take them.
And like tonight, that just proved it because I had no idea it was going to go that way.
No.
Like, I thought we were just interviewing a Cliff Richard podcaster.
Yep.
And that shit went sideways.
It did. And it was...
in a good way.
In a great way. There's so much tears of laughter. And there was just ridiculous amounts of laughter in general, and it was funny because it just wasn't Paul and I. I could see you really struggling to contain yourself as well.
My face hurts.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. My jaw.
I went to the gym before this, and then I got like a I don't know, jawline workout after this. Holy shit,
absolutely.
I haven't laughed this hard in a while.
Oh, so good.
And it was more just laughing at you guys, to be fair.
Right. Appreciate the honesty, producer Andrew. Thank you. So anyway, where can you guys find more of our amazing and wonderful podcasts? I'll go through all the deets really, really quickly. So you can find us for video on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Or Northland Artist Conversation, that'll be somewhere down here. And if you want to listen to us, that's very cool as well. You can check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube Podcasts, all Northland Artist Conversation. Thank you very much. The other way to find us is just go to Google or your browser of choice and type in Northland Artist Conversation. Honestly, I think we're one of the first, 10, it's like the first 10 results are us. So thanks very much. And if you want to be on the podcast, you want to come and sit down, have a bit of fun, or if you want to do one remotely, we can do that as well. Or, if you know someone that would be great on here, or if you're an artist who's been on here before, but you've done some really cool new stuff, we would love to have you on. Please email hello@northlandartistconversation.co.nz. That's going to be around for those of you that are watching, it'll be somewhere, I guess around here. Somewhere. I don't know, somewhere around there. But yeah. Thank you very much. I'm going to go to my wide camera. Hey, look, we appreciate everyone's support. This is, I think this will be coming out in June. We've got some very cool stuff coming out in May. We're going to do a bit of a first. We're going to focus on New Zealand. Well, we will have focused on New Zealand Music Month. So we will have gone back and revisited some musicians from the Northland area and just taking little snippets from their, their time in the music industry and kind of their experiences and bits and pieces. So I'd highly recommend checking those out. It's just a nice little sort of celebration of the musos for New Zealand Music Month. On behalf of myself, producer Andrew, editor Lee, and engineer Steve, thank you so much for joining us on the Northland Artist Conversation. My name is Mark Kelly, and we will see you guys real soon.